One of the most pivotal entries in the supercanon and my early fandom is the 90s television series Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, starring Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain, which brought the post-crisis comics to screen, elevated Lois, and pushed the characters forward into new romantic territory. Across 4 seasons, 2 Jimmy Olsens, and 1 frog-eating clone, the series charted Lois and Clark's journey from first meeting through marriage and the verge of parenthood. Now, it's time to re-examine the series, its well-developed supporting cast, one of the best Lex Luthors of all time, and of course, the romance. Welcome to Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. These are the Lois and Clark TV mixtapes, and joining me to discuss the romance across 4 seasons between the title characters is the host of Lois and Clark, the new podcast of Superman, returning guest Matt Truex. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me, man. As someone who made a Lois and Clark mixtape back in the day, it really feels like a homecoming, dude.
Oh, I love it. I mean, you and I only get to do this maybe a couple of times a year, record together, so it's always a treat. And who better to start this event with than you?
Start? I didn't know start.
Oh, yeah, this is volume 1. Volume 1 of the mixtape, starting with you, starting with the romance. The most important, salient aspect of the show first, I always say.
Kind of a big part of the show, yeah. A little bit bigger than Superman, to be honest.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I have wanted to do this event for a really long time. We talked about this the first time you were on this podcast, but Lois and Clark aired 93 to 97. For me, that's ages 6 through 10. And I watched it then as a kid, but I was young and I don't have the most solid memories of those viewings. I think I saw most, if not all of the episodes at that point in time, but shortly thereafter, of course, it started airing in syndication on TNT. So at that point, it's late elementary school for me. And I really watched it in earnest in those TNT airings. And so I think that's the viewing of the show that has always stuck with me the most memory-wise. And if there had been any episodes I had missed, that's when I saw them. But after that point, I didn't revisit Lois and Clark until I started doing all of these Superman podcasts. And a few years ago, I rewatched season 1 because my wife and I did a Patreon thing about that. And then I've rewatched select episodes along the way, like we've talked about. Well, in fact, you joined me for New Krypton and Tempest.
Tempest, yeah.
Did another episode on the frog-eating clone arc.
It's very fun to listen to, yes.
Over the summer, we did a whole thing on Lois, and I rewatched the Ultra Woman episode. But those were select episodes jumping around. I had never done a full rewatch, and there were so many episodes I hadn't seen in decades.
Yeah.
And Matt, an audience, I am here. I'm happy to report I did it over the past 4 to 6 weeks. I rewatched all 4 seasons, all 87 episodes. I did it.
Wow. It took me like 6 years in a podcast to rewatch every day. Like, that's amazing, man. Okay, so where are you right now then? Are you in love or you're like, okay, that was a lot. I need a break?
Both. I mean, okay. Yeah, I have to say that overall, I come out of this rewatch with an even greater love and appreciation for this show and what it did in terms of kind of carrying the ball for Superman in other media in the 90s and also for my own fandom. I think one of the things, and I'm curious if you experienced this as well, like before you got to your podcast, I feel like over the years, maybe because of how formative Smallville was for me, I don't know, but I feel like I kind of diminished Lois and Clark a bit in my memory. I didn't always fully recognize kind of how important it was. And then going back to it and seeing the connection points a lot more clearly now. I mean, it is such an outgrowth of the post-crisis John Byrne / Triangle era comics. I mean, it's those comics brought to life, the Daily Planet staff and supporting cast, the romance, of course, the fact that as we get the explicit line in the show, Clark is who I am, Superman is what I can do. I mean, it was the comics brought to life. So there were so many reasons why this was so pivotal, I think, for the Superman mythology, but for me personally, and I have a much better sense of that than I think I ever did. So no, I come out of it really having had a great time overall, but yes, also feeling like I'm good for a while. Like I don't know that I'll be popping in those discs anytime soon.
You mean your beautiful Blu-ray discs?
Yes, that's right.
I assume, I would hope. Yeah, good.
Yes, of course. Well, I own them on DVD and Blu-ray. And what timing? Because I think right after I started, I mean, I was planning to watch the Blu-rays anyway, but now as of this recording, it's no longer on HBO Max. So There we go.
Yep.
Let's have some fun here. I enjoyed the rewatch. I struggled in 3 spots.
Okay.
2 of them were kind of like decent stretches where I was struggling a little bit. The third one was sort of more of an isolated pocket. I'm really putting you on the spot, but do you want to venture any guesses as to the trouble spots where I was really kind of hitting a wall in terms of enjoyment?
I'm gonna say Amnesia.
Yes.
Okay.
So Frog Eating Clone Arc, maybe this is a hot take, maybe not, but of those 5 episodes, the first 3 I'll take.
Very watchable. Some of the best John Shea, Lex Luthor shit you'll ever get. Yeah.
100%. He totally makes that arc. There's great stuff in there. And we're going to have a lot more to say about Lex in one of our upcoming mixtapes. But yes, when you then get to those last 2 chapters where Lois still has not regained her memories, she's brainwashed into becoming an assassin by one psychiatrist, and then in the next episode becomes infatuated with the other psychiatrist. It's like, you guys, like, you know when to wrap this up. So that was one. Do you want to venture any other guesses?
I'm going to say the isolated incident is ghosts.
Oh no, that was the isolated incident. I meant like those. So the end of the Frog Eating Clone, that was kind of the isolated one.
Okay. That episode just kills me. So otherwise it was just a general malaise. I'm going to say end of season 4.
So this too might be a bit of a hot take. No, it's all right. No, but that's why this is so interesting, and I love comparing notes. So this might be a bit of a hot take. I think season 4 is a lot better than it gets credit for, right?
I totally do too. I've been doing this kind of like ranking thing this year, and we haven't done season 4 yet. But like, I think there's some real like legit bangers in season 4. And I'll never understand that. Well, we'll get into relationship stuff, but I'm like, just because they're married doesn't mean that this is a boring show or that we don't have anything to say new about them or anything yet. So like, I think they do those parts of season 4 really well.
Yeah, because you finally get different kinds of challenges for them. And I found it very interesting. And there are a good number of multi-part stories that I thought were pretty compelling. So no, I'll share the instances where I show beginning of season 2, like the first chunk of season 2.
Okay.
The show obviously went through a major transition with the departure of Deborah Joy Levine, the original creator, and the whole writing staff, and Michael Landis and Tracy Scoggins and John Shea. And I felt like you lost that fantastic banter between Lois and Clark. That was such a highlight of the first season. Clearly, they were trying to emphasize the action and the Superman side of things more, and it just felt like the romance, with limited exception, was a bit on the back burner. And then you get to Phoenix,
1,000%. Yes,
and then you get to Phoenix, and all of a sudden he asks her out, and it's like, oh my god, we're off here. But that first chunk of season 2 was rough, and then I got to tell you, man, the first bit of season 3.
Whoa. Okay. We're going to differ really strongly on that.
Okay.
But we'll get into that as we go through our various sagas of their relationship.
Yeah.
If I could speak really quickly to what you were saying earlier, your kind of journey with the show in general is very much mine, where like loved it as a kid, no notes, how I learned Superman, like just absolutely adored it. Smallville comes out. Oh my God, this is cooler and better and blah, 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 blah. And then like late high school, early college, I got the DVDs and would watch some from time to time and be like, yeah, this is cute, but it's like a little lame or whatever. I started the podcast kind of with like a smirk, kind of with like a tongue in my cheek of like, yeah, like I love Superman. I love this show. There's some weird shit here. I don't know if I like it all. Let's just rediscover it. And then like truly by the end of doing the podcast, and maybe it's Stockholm syndrome, but I'm like, No, man. Like there's don't get me wrong. There's still weird stuff here and bizarre turns and whatnot, but like it is my comfort show. It means so much to me. The emotional stuff of it means the world to me. And then well, especially this year, frankly, like I got to reread Man of Steel for the first time since before I started the podcast. And I'm like, oh, I forgot that like Terry Hatcher Lois Lane is like page to screen John Byrne Lois Lane. Like there's so much there. And it totally goes to what you're saying of like, this is let's adapt, excuse me, the new comics with some of the stuff that the older generation remembers from Christopher Reeve, from George Reeves, from whatever's come before, you know? So like it really was an important part of the legacy and was a bona fide hit for a few seasons there.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, in the 90s, right? The first couple of years of the decade, you had the last couple of seasons of the Superboy TV show, but that was its own thing and
never heard of it.
Not as not as prominent. And then certainly later in the decade, we would get Superman the animated series, and that's no small thing. But then we're in the realm of animation. But as far as live action goes, well, it was Lois and Clark in the 90s. So credit where credit's due. And
yep.
Yeah, I think regardless of whatever critiques we justifiably have about the show, I think at the end of the day, the core of it was there. The heart was there. It captured the spirit of these characters.
Yes.
There was a charm, a heart, and a humor to it. The chemistry between the two of them was palpable and drove these episodes and carried us through a lot.
Yep.
And I think one of the other really big picture things that I come away from this recognizing, I think more than ever, was how much this show really pushed the mythology forward in terms of the romance between the two of them. Now, again, like credit where credit's due, Superman 2, the movie, obviously focused on the romance in a way that audiences hadn't seen in the realm of Superman. But the ultimate takeaway there was like, he can't be with Lois.
Yeah. Well, that was a nice time, but I guess that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also credit where credit's due, the comics of this era that, like we're saying, Lois and Clark was taking its cues from, had progressed the relationship.
Yes.
The characters were engaged in the comics. So that was happening. But as someone who has read all of those comics and has watched all of these episodes, I mean, the level of nuance and depth that you get here naturally is far more involved than what was going on in the comics. And so like, it's one of those things, hypothetically, let's say Lois and Clark didn't exist or didn't focus on the romance. I know.
I'm fading out of existence, as you say.
We shudder at the thought.
Yeah.
And let's say hypothetically, Smallville still came around and it's this early 2000s WB drama. Yeah, I'm sure the romance and the angst probably still would have been there on that network at that time. But still, I just can't overlook, I think, how important in terms of, like I said, just moving that mythology forward. And now you see that across media.
I totally agree with you. I also think, like, look, it's all a conversation, right? And the comics are where this all comes from and are very much like where the ideas, the general ideas for a lot of the things that we love in the multimedia world come from. But there is something to be said for, like, it's the multimedia shows that really kind of cement the public's, I don't know, the social conscious, whatever. What am I trying to say? But the general public's perception of what this is. And having for 4 years on a major network a show called Lois and Clark, putting her front and center and making it that like the two-hander really does help, like, keep her in a part of the conversation. There's a world where Smallville ultimately went like, yeah, we loved our Lois, but she had to leave or she died or whatever, and now we get to be with Lana, and the public would accept that. But like Superman and Lois, that title, that doesn't happen without Lois and Clark first. Like that in that kind of meta way, that show is very much in conversation with Lois and Clark, kind of picking up theoretically where they left off, like it's. I like that you're saying that, because yes, people knew Lois Lane before that and Margot Kidder and whatever, but it really wasn't, I don't think, till this that really kind of cemented like, no. If you want to see it like this and you want to present it like this, this story is a two-hander between these two people and their juggling of the third personality in whatever version, that is.
Absolutely. And even when it goes away in something like the New 52 in the comics, it comes back. I think there's something very undeniable about it now, especially. And to your point, it's very true. The impact that these multimedia adaptations can have. Because I look at something like Lois and Clark having a child or children. And yes, we got that. Well, of course, we end Lois and Clark with that.
Spoilers for the end of this episode. Yeah.
I do want to, we'll talk about that.
Oh, we'll get there.
But relatively recently in the comics was the introduction of John Kent. And then you see Lois and Clark with two sons in Superman and Lois. And I feel like that's really further cementing that idea. And that too, I feel like represents the mythology pushing forward in a major way.
100%.
Now, you mentioned George Reeves. Now, we've talked about this. Have you watched that show or much of it?
I've watched, I especially as a kid, I watched some of it. And I say some because like when I was getting into Lois and Clark, whatever summer that was, George Reeves was on TV Land, Nick at Night. No, I think TV Land or whatever, like during the day too. So like I'd catch that and be like, oh, that's what it used to be. And I was a little less interested in it, to be honest, because, Terry and Dean were my whole world that summer, So, but I've also gone back and looked at some of it. I am not the student that you are, however, so I look forward to whatever point you're about to make.
Well, by the way, I've almost graduated because we're very deep into our George Reeves.
The finals of bitch.
But there's really such a direct line we can draw from the Reeves show to Lois and Clark. Yes, the title, Lois and Clark, is The New Adventures of Superman. And both shows obviously focus primarily on that Daily Planet quartet of Lois, Clark, Jimmy Perry. But John Byrne and Mike Carlin and like almost all of those Triangle era creators, when they were reinventing Superman post-crisis, cited the George Reeves show as a major inspiration, and specifically the fact that Clark was the guy. He wasn't this bumbling, mild-mannered iteration of the character. Like he was a driver of the action. He was confident. He was authoritative. Like, again, he was the guy.
Cool and Uncle Clark in that show, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And that then fed into those comics that then gave rise to this. So we really, really can draw that. And that's one of those things that over the course of these past few years, diving into all of this stuff, it's like, I never knew I owed such a debt to the George Reeves show for the comics that I love. Yeah. And then a show like this, like it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Again, the conversation, I mean, it's your whole journey here on this podcast that you curate so beautifully, but like it is that conversation that it all has. Like the movie comes up with some cool thing or God, like the crystal visual of Krypton. And now we've got that throughout a million different things. And then the comics throw this out and that becomes in the movie, like all that stuff is just so fascinating. But again, it's the multimedia stuff that really sticks with the consciousness, because that's the thing that you watched a million times as a kid. And that's the thing that meant something to you. And that's why, like, in my heart of hearts, Dean Cain, but that's what Superman looks like to me, because that's the guy that I met in this show, and it's the guy that the character, the version of the character that I fell in love with.
I understand. And one last thing on the George Reeves Adventures of Superman front. One of the things, probably the main thing that I have struggled with the most in making my way through all of those 1950s episodes, especially as we get into the color era where it's very kid friendly.
Yeah.
I come away from a lot of those episodes where we're dealing with gangsters, typically generic gangsters. And overall, with limited exception, there are almost never any emotional stakes in the episodes. And romance was not a subject that show was built for at that time and for that audience. I was thinking about this in advance of sitting down to record, and I'm like,
you gross cooties. Yeah.
I think it was like 4 times over the course of 104 episodes where the subject is even broached. Like there's a moment in season 1 where Lois is talking to a wrestler, and then Perry says to Clark, "Are you jealous?" And Clark says, "No." That's one.
Interesting. Wow.
There's another one.
Honestly, that happens in season 1 of this show too.
True. Then at the end of season 2, Lois has some line to Superman like, "Oh, have you ever thought about having a family?" And Superman literally runs out. That's 2. Then in season 4, a very famous episode, The Wedding of Superman, Lois dreams that she and Superman get married. And that's the most that show ever does. And then in the final season, there's an episode where Superman pretends to be married to this very attractive police sergeant, but it's all a ruse to root out the bad guys, but he doesn't tell Lois. And so she goes through the whole episode so brokenhearted. But like,
oh, tough day.
Maybe I'm missing something, but like, that's about it. So I had all of that in my head. And as I was going through these episodes, and especially once we get to the post John Shea episodes, and mileage will vary on how effective the villains of the week were on the show, some more so than others.
Very indeed. Yeah. Okay.
But even in an instance where maybe the plot of an episode didn't grab me that much, those emotional stakes and the investment in the relationship, it was there. And so I just kept saying, like, yeah, this is, every time I'm complaining about that other show, it's like, this is what I wanted. And it took time, but we got there.
That's the beauty of, like, I never got to speak with Deborah Joy Levine. I would still love to, but I will admit, like, I know a lot of fans, especially of like Superman and the comics and whatnot, like really love season 1. And I think that's because like that's where everybody is like in the right place and whatever. When she left, I like the crazier like versions of the stories that they go for after that. But like, God bless that woman for titling this show Lois and Clark, because it meant that you can never get too into just doing a Superman show. You've got to do their relationship. That's got to be the center, the focus, you know, the core heart of the show. And because of that, like you're saying, there's some boring episodes. There's some like, whatever episodes, but like there's always going to be 1 or 2 scenes in there between some version of our main 2, right? That is just going to cut to the like emotional core of what they are. And that's what I responded to so much in this show, especially going back to it and finding it again through the podcast.
I think you mentioned the Ghost episode. That's the one with Drew Carey.
Oh, piece of shit episode. Yeah, nothing against Drew Carey.
But here's the thing. As I was making my way through and time was running out, these these recordings were breathing down my neck. There was this temptation to skip here and there. And one of the ones I toyed with skipping was that one. And then I was like, you know what? When the hell else am I ever going to do this? Just watch it. And that was an episode I ended up enjoying it more than I thought I would. And even just sort of the basic premise that Lois is no good in the kitchen and she's trying to work on that. Yeah, we get really out there with all the ghost business, but you just kind of that setup there. I'm like, okay, there's something here. We're getting into their home life and this little piece of potential tension. Like even in an episode like that, there's something.
Yeah, the thing I like about that, because like it kind of bothers me that she's that bothered by this. You know, like she's Lois Lane. Who gives a shit? But at the end, she does like make the meal and whatnot. And I don't know. There's some sort of comment of like, so you're going to be doing this a lot lately? And she's like, it's kind of like climbing Everest. Once you do it, you realize you don't need to do that again, which I love. Yeah, you know? It
was perfect. Also, one other big picture thing. I have to give you props because, I was thinking of you. Obviously, I knew we were going to talk about this, but I think because of your influence, as I was watching all these episodes, I was paying a lot more attention to the sets, the production design, the props, when we get the orb, when we get the ship.
My weird obsessions with this show visually, yes.
And this would have struck me either way, but the music. I mean, and I know you've had Jay Gruska on your show, and I encourage people to check that out, but I mean, the music here, phenomenal. I mean, unreal. I wish I had deeper analysis, but it's like, it's good.
The dumbest thing I've ever said to somebody on mic was talking to Jay Gruska and going like, dude, you're going to laugh, but like, their love theme is what love sounds like in my head. Like after good dates, after my first date with my wife, I hear that little love theme and I know how stupid that sounds. And he laughed in my face and that's fine. And I get it. But like, yeah, like it just totally internalized for me of like, this is what love, this is what kind of like safety and like a relationship sounds like to me. And that's totally stuck with me.
Yeah. Now, of course, we're primarily focusing here on the romance between Lois and Clark. Of course,
we're not doing sets.
That might be another.
I've got so much to say about it. Okay.
That maybe we'll do a bonus mixtape on.
Yeah, I'll get Jim Pohl back. Yeah, let's do that. That'd be great.
For a second, I thought you said sex because I actually have a big question about that.
Oh, we're totally talking about sex tonight. Yeah.
But,
settle in, listener.
generally we'll focus on Lois and Clark. Of course, we'll have to talk about Lois and Lex and other love interests that the characters had. I know you've come across this before. I'm not breaking any new ground. And I feel like this is probably a very common sentiment among the fandom. But before this rewatch, if you had asked me, like, how many episodes is Mason Drake in?
Yeah, you would have said 12.
Yeah, she's in half the season. If you had asked me how many episodes is Dan Scardino in, I'd be like, maybe by about like a quarter of the season. Like in so few episodes. I guess that's a testament though to the impact that they made.
100%. I think Mason's in 4, and what's Dan in? Like 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Totally inflated their episode count in my head. Those are obviously love interests that were on the show that we'll talk about. Are there any love interests from the comics or other media for either of the characters who didn't make it in that you were like genuinely surprised by, that you feel like were a missed opportunity?
I don't. She did make it in. I think Lana really, really gets the short end of the stick in this show. I'm sure you have even deeper thoughts about that, but like as a Smallville fan, just seeing how they kind of did Lana dirty. She's in an alternate, she's in Earth 2, and she is basically keeping him from being Superman while they're together. And that's just, that's tough. I really think this show could have done a really fun episode with Lori Lamaris, but that's
dude.
I like the show really thrived. And I asked the season 3 and 4 showrunners about this year on my podcast. And, They didn't really like totally feel it, but I was like, so much of your stories are really feel like Silver Age comics. Is that what you were, influenced by? And I think they were just like, we're influenced the comics in general. I don't know, it's all silly, so we just make a silly episode. But like, this show totally could have gotten away with doing like a Splash Mermaid thing with her for an episode.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I agree wholeheartedly about Lana. That feels like such a missed opportunity, especially because the Kents were so prominent on the show. And I was messaging you about this. We get to a certain point in the show, we never go back to Smallville anymore, but we do have some visits to Smallville early on. And it just felt like that would have been a very natural place to include her. So yes, that feels like a missed opportunity there. But I co-sign the Lori Lamaris bit 1,000%. It's not limited to Lois and Clark. I mean, I think about Smallville too. It's like, how do you leave her on the table? And I feel like for either of those, but especially for Lois and Clark, to have the college girlfriend show up. Yeah. I mean, that's that. And then the other thing is the Cat Grant of it all, where there's another version of Cat Grant where, yes, she can still be vivacious and promiscuous and more sexually aggressive, but still, maybe have some more sides to her. Maybe had she continued on the show, we would have fleshed her out more. But in another version, like, she could have been more of a contender, just like she was in the comics when she was initially introduced. Like, it was a lot of Clark and Cat at the beginning of that Byrne era. So those were the ones that definitely came to my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's crazy to me, and again, kind of speaks to that Mason and Dan Scardino thing you were saying, where it's like Lex is the romantic rival in season 1. Mason and Dan come in and out, and then we're kind of done. Like that's all they ever really do. There's probably a one-off in a few episodes here and there that I'm not thinking of right now, but like
Irish
those are
ex-boyfriend.
the only ones. Irish ex-boyfriends. In that same episode, Clark is being like a little bit wooed by a woman who's kind of like a Janice knockoff from Friends.
Yes.
But like, that's really like, those 3 are really the only ones of note, right? Like, and that's crazy to me for a show that was trying to do the will they won't they thing. But we'll get into when that era, ended and when it didn't.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about how to structure this conversation, and I think independently we both kind of came to the same idea, because I think we can carve up the development of their relationship into a few distinct eras that also carry us across the evolution of the series itself. And so I think that can give structure to our conversation, and we'll talk about broad strokes, what we liked, what we didn't, specific moments that stand out to us. But maybe the last big picture thing, and we were alluding to this before, is the show's position or view on sex and marriage.
Oof, yeah.
And it's one of those things, like, I understand this was a family show on ABC in the 90s. Like, I get it. It's funny. I was talking to my wife about this and she was like, well, what did you want them to show? I'm like, it's not that I wanted them to show stuff, but it's like nobody bangs on this show, right? No. Unless they get married. And in multiple instances, we like just are thrown into a marriage proposal, like shockingly fast. And I mean, I guess we have our answer, but I welcome any of your thoughts on this because it's a choice.
I mean, do we have our answer? So I talked again to the showrunners this year who were running the show when we found out that like Clark is a virgin in season 3. And I didn't have the guts to really bring it up. It felt rude, frankly, to bring up. So I didn't have the guts to ask them about it. But I don't know. It's such a sexless show for such a very sexy and at times horny show. In a good way. In like it's a soap opera. It's a rom-com. It's all those things. So it's supposed to be that stuff. Yeah, I've never really understood the show's kind of reluctance with sex to begin with. I will never really understand him being like why he had to be a virgin before they got married. And it's also so funny to look at the show because like I've said this a lot on my podcast, but after a certain point in season 4, when they're married, like instead of like the episode ends with like a cute smile and a stolen kiss at the Daily Planet, it's like, no, the episode ends and we're going to go upstairs and bone. And like to go from like, oh, I'm waiting for marriage to that in the same show. There's the sensibility of that is very funny to me.
Yes. No, I was definitely struck by that upon rewatching season 4. You're right. I mean, a significant number of those episodes end with them on their way. And this is the one in particular, the Sex, Lies, and Videotape episode when they're in the hotel. And
great app.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic episode. And they're under the blanket and she's like, oh, my feet are cold. And so he pulls up the blanket to use his heat vision. And she goes, you missed. And he's like, did I? And then, but I'm like, is heat vision, like, is that okay? Like,
got past the network, I guess. So we're fine.
Yeah. But in terms of content, but I was thinking more just like physically, like, I mean, I guess he can control he was going to do,
warming sensations are known to be quite effective. Yeah. So.
But exactly. But I was very struck by that. But it's like, yeah, you really see once we've crossed the marriage threshold, it's like, then all of this is okay, but not a moment before.
Anyway, the gloves are off.
Yes. Well, and you and I talked about this when we covered the new Krypton arc a while back, but it's insane to me that they wouldn't have consummated their relationship before he left for New Krypton, especially when they have that whole talk about how in my heart, you are my wife already. Yes. And you and I talked about how I think maybe the intention was
they left the door open for that. Yeah.
Until you get to season 4 and they are very explicit that no, they didn't. And we have this whole soulmates quest through time before that can happen.
But I do love this daffy ass show for like, all right, the episode starts like we just got married. Let's go to Bone Town. Knock, knock, knock on the door. H.G. Wells, you're cursed. Sorry, guys. Like I that is the show like at its height. If we're already too far down that road to get away from it, which is very funny to me. But I'll kind of never understand that. I don't. It is implied though that Lois and Lex had sex.
Is it? Because
I think it's implied, isn't it?
Because I think it's the...
Am I just thinking that she's had sex? Like, Lois isn't a virgin.
So she's had sex because in the Virtually Destroyed episode where they have this conversation about how
this is what I'm trying to think of. Yeah.
She's like, I wish I had waited. But as far as... So generally... Because he's like, I waited.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a lot of Lex bullshit going on in that episode that's confusing me. You're right.
But with Lex specifically, the episode after she accepts the proposal, there is an exchange where she's like, I appreciate you understanding that I wanted to wait.
Okay.
So
thank you. Wow. I knew I'd get schooled today. I thought it would be on comics, but no, it's on the show.
I literally just watched all of this. So it's in my head. It won't stay. I feel like your memory, I feel like,
it didn't stay to me either. So.
Well, but still, I feel like it's kind of all crammed in here, and then I'm going to start to lose it. Yep. That's why we get these episodes recorded right away while it's still all in there.
As you pile more and more new comics onto it, and
exactly
sequels.
Right. So, like, as we make our way through the eras of the show and the evolution of the relationship, I think it's fair to say season 1 definitely represents a very distinct era of their relationship, where there is definitely a sexual charge, a tension between them, a respect that grows over the course of the season as they become partners. Mm-hmm. But we still don't venture into the full realm of romance. And they have. It's funny because I know you're a big fan of the John Wesley Shipp Flash series, and I finally watched that myself, and we covered it on the Patreon show, and it was a lot of fun. And you know, one of the things that I was so struck by in watching that show was what I referred to as the platonic intimacy between Barry and Tina. Like there's such a closeness there. And it begs the question, like, but why is it not a romance?
Yes.
And that was sort of what I had in my head as I was watching Lois and Clark in the first season of this. There is definitely more of a sexual charge, I would say here, but still it's the sort of thing, there's definitely a closeness. There are multiple instances where they each talk about how it's difficult to define the relationship that they have. Lois has a line about that in All Shook Up when Clark doesn't have his memory, and he asks, like, what's our deal? And then in The Rival, where Lois's classmate, who she's at odds with, asks Clark the same thing, and it's like, well,
what's up with you two?
Yeah, like we're partners, we're best friends. But I think more than anything, what stands out is season 1, that banter between the two of them.
Yes, they know what they're doing early on, right? And like they think that they're going to keep them apart. Deborah Joy thinks that they're going to keep them apart for like 4 or 5 years at that point. So they really do start on like the total opposites of it. But it is like she treats him with like utter disdain and like dismissal sometimes. And he finds her just like the rudest thing. And it brings out kind of the worst parts of him. But in the other direction of it, and like it's probably not the healthiest way to look at it, but like it's kids pulling pigtails and stuff on the playground. Like he is so immediately charmed by how kind of turned off she is in a weird way, and like has fun calling her out on being rude. And she is, like we established in the pilot, like she is at her heart like the most romantic person and just wants to be swept off her feet and that type of thing. And it works out really well. And knowing that side of both of them, the fact that we get to kind of go home with them separately and see that, it really informs for me the like rudeness or the little snipes and that banter between them, where like they're not always getting along, but they're pretty much best friends from the start.
Totally. No, I'm so glad you brought up that home life of Lois, especially in that first season, and this secret romantic that she is.
Yes.
And kind of on that note, we were talking about how these characters are cut from the cloth of the comics, and I don't disagree. I've done a fair amount because we just went through all of the John Byrne material again, and I said this in basically every episode. I found Byrne's Lois just generally too abrasive. She's
very rude. Yes.
And one of the things I was so struck by, and it's the Terry Hatcher performance and of course the writing, but this Lois, she can be tough. There can be that abrasive quality. She's very competitive, but it works, right? Like you're still invested in this character. She's still likable, relatable. So I just feel like there's so much more humanity and warmth. And obviously, look, it's a different medium. We're fleshing out the character. But that's one of the things, if this had truly been like a one-to-one from the comics, I don't know how great this Lois would have been. But we were really able to add dimensions here. That was huge.
There is a very endearing insecurity to her Lois that is Terry bringing it out in this and in the writing too. But like the performance is lovely, where it's like, it's so cool to see her be like tough as nails, Lois Lane, and then to melt sometimes, and then to feel like there's a great exchange in season 2 where like she's met or like re-met a friend that she kind of betrayed a little bit in college or whatever, and the episode's ending with her going like, "Am I rude to Clark?" Like, you can be. Am I standoffish or unfriendly or whatever? Yeah, you can be. Am I a good friend? I think you're a great friend. And like that's where we are, you know, like that type of thing where it's just like she can be tough as nails woman, but like suddenly with him after a little while, there's an honesty there that he sees through, and he's melted in her, and she brings out the better side of him too, I think, as well. Like it's a lovely thing.
Yeah, it really is. And in terms of those different sides, I mean, look, we see the attraction in the pilot when he opens the door in his towel.
I thought you'd be naked.
Ready. So good. And then, of course, when she's under the effects of the love potion in Pheromone, My Lovely, and she sets her sights on Clark, and at the end of the episode, very begrudgingly, has to admit some level of attraction there.
Something there.
Yeah. But like I said, we also have this tension. And when we get to the Foundling episode, and she knows that Clark has lied about this orb, you know, you see that frustration come out. An episode, though, like Witness, where she's being targeted, you see the comfort that she seeks in Clark.
I love that moment. Yeah, sorry. She's basically been attacked in her home, and Clark comes in and kind of like scares the guy away, right? And the guy runs off, and he's going to go off, and she's like, no, stay. I need you to stay with me. And there's that platonic intimacy, right? Like at that moment, they are closer than anyone is ever going to be. And she needs to be held by him and comforted for a second. And like that is not the woman that he met in Perry's office, whatever, 16 episodes before.
Exactly. And then Ides of Metropolis, when she's hiding the wanted man, and she confides in Clark, and she works together. Episodes, I mean, certainly, obviously, Honeymoon in Metropolis is such a standout, and you get so kind fun. Of like you get everything in that episode in terms of the dynamic, including you see the idea of cohabitation, what that would mean, and you know the fears and securities questions they both have as that comes out, and obviously the attraction from Clark's part as well. And even going back to the Pheromone, My Lovely episode, this poor guy like put through the ringer with temptation and gets to the point. I mean, I love the morning after, he's like, all right, Lois,
let's go.
Yeah, and then I keep saying the banter, but more specifically, what I love throughout that first season is it's not like just that they're sniping at each other. They have different worldviews.
Yes.
Right. And episode after episode, it's like when they're talking about magic, like Clark's open to the idea of it. Lois, not so much. Right. When Lex has manipulated the weather and there's this heat wave in the winter, like Clark is kind of bemused by this fact, whereas Lois is, so put off by it. The idea of marriage and trust, they have their differing views on it. And so I think that banter, that back and forth, and the way in which it revealed how they see the world and how they butt up against each other in that way. I mean, it was like just so fast. Like I love that aspect of season 1. My love of the TV series Smallville is well documented, and there's one Smallville podcast that's always at the top of my queue. Always Hold On to Smallville, hosted by our pal, Zach Moore. Zach and his guests bring tremendous insight, passion, and humor to each and every episode. And the podcast continues with more great Smallville and Superman talk now that their series rewatch has concluded. Listen wherever you get podcasts, and keep an eye out for the other shows under the Always Hold On To banner. As a Superman fan, have you ever wondered what would happen if a person who knew barely anything about comics decided to absorb hundreds of Superman stories from all eras and media? Robbo is that kind of person, and that's exactly what he's done on a new show called This Podcast Will Never Die. The first season, called Superman Will Never Die, starts with all the unexpected ways the Man of Steel stood out from the pulp heroes on the newsstands in 1938. Listen and subscribe to This Podcast Will Never Die, and you'll never look at Superman's trunks the same way again. We love digging into epic comic book runs, but what about the art of the single issue? Single Bound is a new podcast series hosted by married couple Amy and Logan as they review single issues of comics. And if the title also makes you think of Superman, you're not alone, as the Man of Steel is Logan's favorite character and a regular topic of discussion on Single Bound. Listen and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, and follow the show on Instagram at Single Bound Podcast.
Yep, no, same thing. And it's very interesting to see Deborah Joy, how she kind of saw the series going forward and realizing things like you're saying with Honeymoon in Metropolis. Like, let's let them play house for a second and see how badly that's going to go. Let's make them go undercover together and see how badly that's going to go. Like all that type of stuff, just understanding like if we test this relationship in different situations, we can get so much out of both of their characters Like it's just really, really smart writing early on to show us where those characters are and to slow roll this thing. We know that's where we're going. So take your time and let them be a little antagonistic to each other from time to time and see how that goes from both of them and see how they both react to that. And they both feel kind of bad about it at the end of the episode, usually, you know?
Yeah, so I agree wholeheartedly because, and look, it's obviously colored by the fact like I know where the show is going, but
Right.
still watching that first season, I could have stayed in that mode for a lot longer. It's not like I wasn't watching those episodes
Well,
being like,
ABC didn't agree with you, okay?
but it's like I wasn't watching those episodes being like, come on, like when are we getting to this? Like I was so enjoying it. Yet when we get into, and I do quite like season 2 in fairness, but we get into this routine of he's constantly running off and it's wearing on Lois and like it gets to a point where it's like something's got to happen. Like it's we got to, and that's not a bad thing, but it's like this mode that they set up in season 1 was very sustainable. Is my point. You know?
No, I totally get that. I also just like I'm always reminded of it's a quote from Robert Butler who directed the pilot, and I think he said it in the commentary or one of the special features for the show. But he's like, my favorite love story is when they don't know that they're in love yet. And that is 100% what they play here. Like that's something I love about the Kents throughout the season or throughout, well, the whole series, but especially like season 1 in the pilot, the minute he mentions Lois, like Martha kind of turns to Jonathan. I think they're on the phone and gives a like, oh, a girl, oh, something, whatever. Like that's part of the fairy tale here too, that like the rest of the world know this is going to happen. You guys just have to like figure your shit out, right? And the fact that we're going through that for the whole season, and then at the end of the season, she chooses Lex, and then gets kind of cold feet about that, and that's just like really good, again, rom-com soap opera-y writing.
Dude, when we get to that moment in the penultimate episode of season 1, where Clark confesses his feelings to Lois to stop her from marrying Lex. And she tells him she loves him as a friend, and then makes her appeal to Superman. And he says, there are a lot of things you don't know about me. And she's like, even if you were just a regular, ordinary guy, I would feel the same. Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
great. It's great.
Oh, it's so good.
It's awesome.
It's so good.
And then that's mirrored later at the end of season 2, which we'll talk about. But like that is such a killer moment to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, kind of on the note of Superman, one of the other things I was struck by, by the way, as I'm sharing my findings with you, it's like I'm breaking new ground here. You're like, yeah, dude, I know. But I was reminded at the relatively minimal presence of Superman in those season 1 episodes.
Yes,
which was interesting, and I think that was probably beneficial for a number of reasons. But hand in hand with that, I think in my head, I had remembered like way more of Lois's infatuation with Superman. I mean, I'm not saying it's not there, but I don't know. Like in rewatching it, it didn't feel like as prominent or as much of a driver as like I had remembered it, or as people might expect given this show and its title.
And the kind of cultural understanding too of like, oh, she just loves Superman. But like, obviously it's there, but I agree with you. It's kind of advanced though in season 2 when Superman becomes more of a part of the show. And I think that is what leads to a lot of your kind of disinterest in this beginning of season 2 there. I think it's, despite it being a Superman show, I think it's impressive to me that this show came out when it did, focused on these characters, and still became a hit just by giving that little spritz of Superman in an episode, as opposed to being a big old action show. Like there was still a patience for a show like this, and the chemistry between them and the writing between them was so good that it still made it a hit regardless.
Yeah. And going back to what we were saying about how important it is to see that hidden romantic side of Lois watching the old romance and eating her ice cream and crying.
Crying in bed, yeah.
It's like it does help. Maybe this doesn't need to be accounted for, but it does help account for why one of the reasons why she's so taken with Superman. Like this is the fantasy that she has craved now showing up. So you do get it. This isn't romance specific, but there are a couple of attributes of Lois and Clark in the first season that I wish had remained as a more indelible part of their character moving forward. Clark as the world traveler. I feel like as we get deeper into the show, it's not like it's never ever brought up again, but I feel like that was very much a season 1 thing, and I like that. I just like the idea of him having traveled the world, but the fact that he has this, he's not just this hick off the bus. It's like he's he's had all of these experiences. I love that.
That's something I love too, just about this version of the character, where like he is a curious person. Like he's not just like, oh, I'm Superman, great, I'll do that, and then like I'll watch TV for the rest of the night or whatever. Like, no, he went out into the world, and so he learned all the languages, and he met all the people, and he's taken things from the best parts of that humanity has to offer from around the world. And I love that about this version. And not to say it's just this version, but I like that was so highlighted early on for this character. And you're right, it does get lost, especially when we get like later down the season, and it's just like, we're doing villain of the week stuff now, don't worry about it,
Yeah, so I love that, and I guess hand in hand with that, and I've said this in so many episodes now, but I love how he gets his job at the planet. I love that it's not writing a story about himself.
Writing the Superman story.
Yeah, that he writes the human interest story that Lois was too busy for, and it's this really bittersweet story of this woman who won't let go of this theater that's about to be demolished. I love
And
that.
what does it show you about Clark? Not that like he can scheme his way into like doing an interview with himself, that like this guy at his core has the biggest heart you'll ever see. And that's what's going to get him in here. He's going to write the hell out of a human interest piece, so much so that the craggly old editor at the Daily Planet is going to give him a job. And that's awesome to me. Another thing that really, I think, is really cool and highlighted in this first season, and it's to something that you said earlier on of like the Lois infatuation with Superman. I love that she is someone, specifically this version of her, that is like attracted to the extraordinary. Before Superman, in the pilot, who is she interested in? She's on a date with Lex Luthor. She's trying to get an interview, but like there is something there, And then Superman comes in, and then like those are the two people that she notices. Not the beautiful sweet man that is working with her every day and giving her shit for whatever. It's the other two interesting, more extraordinary people. And seeing that melt over the first 2 seasons, and her really start to that Clark kind of work his way into her heart and her brain that way, is really cool too. And it's not something that like one person had the vision for. Again, like Deborah Joy leaves at the end of season 1. Robert Singer, sorry, I always did that, had already come in and takes the show to the more super range, but then they get back to that heart afterwards and stick with it more or less for the rest of the season, or for the rest of the series. And that's impressive to me, that there's kind of cohesion there, regardless of who's got the ball at whatever time.
Yeah, absolutely. On the identity front, like this comes up all the time about like, which is the true version of the character. And again, here, obviously, we're very much in the mode of Clark is who he is. Superman is the disguise, or to borrow the line from John Byrne, Superman's a pair of long johns that lets me go out and help people. And I think, but across all of these tellings, I think the most important part is that Lois falls in love with the true version of the character. And yes, it takes a little bit.
At some point, right?
At some point, right? And yes, it takes a little bit longer here, but she does get there. Oh, the other thing that was not romance related, but Lois is karate. I love that for her. And that's one of those things that continues at least into season 2. But I feel like in the back half of the show, unless I'm forgetting, like that really kind of goes away. But that's something that I loved out of the comics. But even if it weren't from the comics, it's a great quality for her to have. So I was bummed to see that kind of fade away.
And especially, by the way, like, how did this woman survive life before Superman? Like she had to stick it out a little bit,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, there are moments as much as he saves her so much, I mean, there are moments where she's really there for him, where he's very early on when Lex has been testing him with his powers, right? And, conveys this lesson of like, you can't be everywhere. And Clark's ready to throw it in. And Lois has this whole speech about what Superman means to people. And then when Lex manipulates the weather to make it seem like it's Superman's powers causing this, she's the one who keeps digging and won't let it go and finds out what's really going on.
Just the broader thing to what you're saying. And it's something that this show really solidified for me. And it makes me upset when I don't see it in other versions, comics or multimedia or whatever. Like, she at a certain point is as much a part of the Superman shtick as he is. She believes in Superman sometimes more than he does. And her belief in Superman as this incredible thing early on in season 1 is what gets us through those episodes. And I love that they make that point where like he's not so sure, like it's a little stupid what he's doing, and like is this the right way to go? And like seeing her and her tenacity in the belief of what he is and what he stands for and blah 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 is so cool to me, that like that is something early on that gets him out of jams, and that when she is his girlfriend, fiance, wife, that is a voice that is in that room that is always arguing for like no 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 no, you can't turn your back on this because Superman can't do that. I know what Superman was to me from the outside, and that should be protected just as much as anything else going on between us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess kind of what I had in my head is Lois's blindness to Superman and Clark being one and the same, which I do genuinely think we get a satisfying accounting for from H.G. Wells in the first Tempest episode in season 2 about being blinded by love, and how people love this story despite of, or rather because of that fact.
One of the best meta moments in the whole show. Yeah.
So poetic. And I think there's something to that. It's like, yeah, there's a big element of suspension of disbelief we have to have here, but it's like, there's something about it that is compelling. And when you kind of, when you layer that on top of like, of course it's ridiculous that you wouldn't be able to put this together, but being blinded by love. So maybe we have our answer for that. On the Lex front, the fact that she's unable to see who Lex really is. And this was great when she's debating whether or not to accept the proposal. And Clark lashes out at her. And he's like, you're this brilliant investigative reporter. Like, how do you not see?
You don't see that this guy is scum? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, how do we account for that? Is it just that John Shea's Lex is just so charismatic?
I think so. I think there's part of the, like, he's a master manipulator, right? Like he's gotten to the point where he is because he can charm his way through a room and that type of thing. If we're gonna, look at it through the reality of the show, I think that's totally what it is. Because there are moments where she goes to him and is like, "What's with this?" He's like, "Oh, that I didn't, I don't even know about that." Or like, "Oh, but he said that way. I didn't mean it. I'm just trying to make sure that he stays. Whatever." I'm thinking specifically in the end of season 2 when he is dismantling her life and she doesn't realize that. And like, by the way, it's the same thing that like a cult leader would do. It's the same thing that an abuser does. And that is what he is here. So like, I don't fault the character for wanting to be loved and being taken in by this guy. Is there part of me that's like, it's Lois, she should have been known better than that? Yeah, but like she also really wants to believe in this love. She is the hopeless romantic in her heart. So that's kind of how I've always justified it for myself. Where like, if you want to see the good side of him, he's going to give you every fucking reason to believe in the good side of him. And he's John Shea, and he's really good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else about season 1 that you want to hit on before we segue to our next major era of their relationship here?
No, I think I've talked out season 1. I do love this show as the romance, though, for having stolen kisses throughout this show. They are not together romantically in any sort of, capacity in season 1. I think in the second episode, they have their first kiss
on the plane.
When he's on the plane. Yeah. And it's a cute, like, you take the one on the left type excuse. When he's going to leave, I think because of the heat wave, he kisses her goodbye. And like, that's kind of the most romantic thing that happens between them early on than anything. But like the show is not afraid of giving you what it needs to for a trailer here and there. And I love it for that too. But it doesn't feel like a betrayal. It always feels earned, and like there's a reason behind it. And especially that one kiss when he's about to leave is very telling to me. That's just like, again, everybody kind of knowing them both having the attraction and knowing that it's there. Like, she doesn't recoil at that kiss. She accepts that kiss,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then when she kisses him when he's going to take off to stop the asteroid, right? At the beginning?
Yes, you're right. Lois kisses Superman.
And then Superman kisses Lois when he pretends he's under the effect, or he lets her think, he goes along with her assumption that he's under the effects of the love potion. So, all right. Maybe that one wouldn't fly today, but yeah.
Whoopsie daisy, but whatever. It's fine. It's meant in good fun.
So then we get into season 2, and like I said, I mean, my take on rewatching those, especially those early episodes, is again, it's not like there's nothing there between them. Very early on, Clark wins that Kurth Award, and Lois is very jealous, but then she ultimately goes, and they have that great clip that we'll see in the opening credits for a long time with the two of them walking and laughing.
But who consoles her that night? Superman.
Well, so, that's one of the things that
get into this.
I had forgotten about. But yeah, there are a few moments in season 2, that one, and then another one where Superman shows up at her window and dances with her.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
yeah. That's the moments where I feel the most disconnect from Clark, where I'm like, you were A, like doing this to yourself, and B, you were like gaslighting the shit out of this woman. And there's an honesty there where it's like, if you could be with the woman that you loved, and go, but you had to be this other person, would you do it? Like there's almost the Shakespearean element of that, of like the playing with disguises and that type of thing. But yeah, it's not the best look for Clark, but when he's so down as Clark and this is the way that he can be with her, I do kind of understand it just from a human level. But again, I'm not encouraging it, listeners.
But do we attribute that to kind of this push from the powers that be to incorporate more Superman, maybe do more triangle business?
Maybe, yeah. I'd never thought of it like that. Maybe because there's that Superman push, and that is why the romance kind of comes to a slower point there in the beginning of season 2, because we're doing action show stuff, right? We're doing action show with 2 moonlighting bantery leads. Don't worry about it. We'll let them kiss eventually. Don't worry about that right now. Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, I like that read of it. That it probably is just like, let's incorporate Superman into every aspect of this.
Yeah, I am glad. As I was rewatching, I'm like, oh, is there going to be a lot more of this? But thankfully not. I mean, I feel like in the grand scheme of things, they're relatively fleeting. So I'm glad they didn't lean too hard enough. On that. Yeah, you do get some nice moments, but yeah, I'm glad that they didn't go too far down that road. I mean, I would say overall in season 2, in terms of the development or rather the kind of the hurdles that they encounter. Yes, we do have the introduction of a love interest for Clark in the form of Mason Drake. There's the logistical hurdle of trying to actually schedule their date and keep their date, right? And then, of course, spoiler alert,
sometimes you have to do a like all night stakeout at a dock. Like that's going to get in the way of your Pearl Jam tickets, I think.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have the death of Mason Drake, and that kind of plunges them into a bit of a nebulous period. And that's where Dan Scardino, this DEA agent, enters the picture. Hey. And hand in hand with all of this, Clark's continual running out and making up of these lame excuses, which clearly is wearing on Lois.
You kind of brought this up before, but like there's a moment, I think in Top Copy, the Raquel Welch episode, where they are like talking honestly in the teaser about like, well, let's have a date. Like, let's do this. You're not going to, run out on me? No, I'm not. And then of course he has to run out on her. And like right after the teaser, they have a discussion at the Daily Planet where she is understandably just like shut down to him. And it's so like, I love that stuff in this show, that like this is going to wear on somebody and she's not going to forget it every time. And she's going to stick up for herself, even though she likes you. But what you're doing and the way you're talking about it is inexcusable. And I respect the hell out of the character and the writers for letting the character have that kind of backbone of like, oh, I guess I forgive you. Like that gets old after a while. And at a certain point, she doesn't do that anymore. And I love that. And she calls out like, and don't remember that you've got to water your neighbor's plants or whatever, like that type of thing. Like, I like that she's not even in on the joke yet, but she understands what's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's interesting because I guess I noticed this too in season 1. There wasn't a ton of that. It's like, yes, he would run off, but they didn't make as big a deal of it. Like clearly in season 2, they make the point of he's giving these increasingly lame excuses and it's grating on her.
Have to return some videotapes. Yes.
Yeah. And as far as the Mason Drake of it all. So, and I know you very graciously had me on your show. We did a commentary on the Lucky Leon episode.
That was so fun. Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, overall, as far as, like we were saying, we don't get many other love interest, like shockingly few when you think about like this kind of show. Yeah. But we do get Mason Drake, who's interested in Clark, not Superman, which really throws Clark. And there's a great scene with him and his parents where he's like talking about this, and because it's the exact opposite of what he's been experiencing with Lois. Yeah, what are your feelings on the Mason character?
I just think that's a perfect foil situation. I think Mason is a cool foil in introduction, or like character to introduce, because there's the romantic dynamic is completely different, and she sees that Clark is, wow, very attractive too, weird, and there's also the just like story foil of her where like she is the ADA that is going to try to keep them off a case or whatever, that is going to withhold information, and now it's got to be Lois and Clark as our team going up against her and trying to go around and figure out the case anyway when she doesn't want them snooping around in there. But at the same time, he doesn't want to piss her off because maybe they go on a date and that type of like. I just think the tension of all of that really, really worked. And again, probably goes to, plus Farrah Fawkes like portrayal really goes to why we're all just like, oh, Mason Drake, she was there for a season and a half. We love that bitch. You know, she was in the credits. Of course she was. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was so much value, and you hit the nail on the head. And the fact that she's this ADA, that opens up other storytelling avenues and gives them reasons to be in contact and at times conflict with each other. And yeah, it is one of those things where it's like we feel like she was there longer. She probably should have been. It's like that's a character that I think could have really had a place. And by the way, as much as this is a sexless show, and it remains in the case of Clark and Mason, but she does invite him to her cabin in the woods for the weekend.
Indeed.
I mean, this is very bold.
I mean, there is innuendo, let's be very clear, especially in season 2 when all this starts happening. Something else I love about Mason is there is obvious competition between her and Lois, but there's a great scene at one point where they just sit down and go like, I don't like you. Oh, thank God. I don't like you either. And it's not about Clark. No, it's not about Clark. I just don't care for you. And like that type of thing, that like buys so much of the Daffy stuff for me when they can have like real emotional moments like that, not just with Lois and Clark, but between two other characters. They're having a completely different conversation, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. That's such a great moment. And then the episode that we did the commentary on, Lucky Leon, where Lois and Clark, they finally have their first date, all this back and forth about what they're going to wear and the pressure of expectation. I guess in fairness, maybe that's a little bit of that banter that I liked coming back when they're sharing kind of what they think about this whole idea of expectations and dressing for each other. This epic lengthy meal that they have where they open up to each other in a different way than we've seen before. Of course, Lois freaks out and pumps the brakes, but then we do get that beautiful walk on the street and their first real official kiss in this kind of capacity before he hears the ticking of the car bomb that's targeting Mason, and he has to speed off and he gets caught in the explosion and his shirt is ripped and Mason sees that he's really super. I mean, that all these years, we talk about things that going back to those viewings when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, seared into my brain.
Yep. 100%
is him cradling Mason.
You could do that on TV. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. It's such yeah, I don't know, man. Cause the last episode of this mixtape event, we're going to count down our top 10 episodes and we have some tough choices to make, but maybe I'm foreshadowing my list a little bit. Cause I
can't wait to do. Yeah. I do want to do that eventually a day too. Cause we've been doing this ranking of the season. And I'm like, at some point that just becomes like, all right, what's the best of, So I look forward to your episode.
Now, what do you make of this sort of, this sort of limbo that Lois and Clark enter in the subsequent episodes? Because is it that Clark is so thrown by Mason's death and he kind of pulls back a little? Because it just sort of feels like they're in a weird spot that Scardino then obviously comes in and exploits.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bit of that. It's the Scardino thing. It's let's time travel and actually show how this should work for a second. It's a little bit of spinning wheels, just story-wise till the end of the season. When they get back to, and sorry, I say that not to ignore your question, but I'm just like, I know what we're doing. Like, we'll get back to it eventually. We're gonna get through it and whatever. Um, Big ol' pin in Tempest Fugitive, but when they get back to it, I think they do a beautiful job of picking it up and picking it up to a point where it's like they've really built up the kind of like shit or get off the pot feeling for them at the end of this season, and it's really well done, I think. So like because of that, I excuse some of this, like, yeah, everyone's a little bit in mourning and their friend just got blown up by a car bomb, and so that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I think we can reconcile it that way. Now, my understanding, I've never gotten the sense that Dan Scardino is a particularly beloved
No,
member
not.
of the Lois and Clark family.
You know, I've heard comments of this as well. That's so funny.
But I mean, honestly, I'm not going to go out on such a limb and be like, justice for Dan Scardino.
Yeah, what a guy.
But I don't know. I mean, I think in terms of the role that he needed to serve in this show, I think he was effective.
I do too. Again, we're watching this too as kids. I think a lot of that Dan Scardino hate comes from initially the audience that was older than us, the high schoolers and above, basically, that were watching the show. And just like, who the hell is this coming at the end of my show when all I want to do is see them kiss? They're about to kiss and she blew up and that's sad, but let's get back to it. Nothing against the what is his name?
Jim Piero?
Jim Piero, thank you. Piero. I think he does exactly what's asked of him. I think he's charming as he can be here. I've never gotten the hate for him that other people have. Do I have the love for him that I have for Mason Drake? No. Right. But it's a different flavor.
I agree. I think that's fair. And it's like, look, if in terms of the function that he was there to serve, if Lois's frustration with Clark, he's constantly running off and he's not being communicative about how he feels.
Yeah.
Scardino comes in and he's there, he's available, and he's making his interest known. So he is this point of contrast. Like, that's what he's there for. So
sending weird modern art to her at the office, you know, like just making his, like you're saying, making his feelings known. And that is, I think, new for her.
You know, did you watch the OC by any chance?
No, not really.
Okay. So real quick, there's this character, Oliver, who's there for like a multi-episode arc in the first season. And this character hated by the fans for getting in the way of Ryan and Marissa. Long story short.
Bit of a Scardino. Yeah. Okay.
But well, different because this kid's like a real scammer and no one sees it except Ben McKenzie's character, Ryan.
Okay.
And I think for a lot of fans watching it initially, and I'll include myself in this, you're just like, oh, I can't stand this character. But when I rewatched it just a couple of years ago, it's like, and maybe I'm being overly generous. The OC fans might be like, what the hell are you talking about? But it's like, you're meant to feel Ryan's frustration over the other characters not seeing what this guy is about.
Right.
And it's like, that's what he's there to, like, that's the function that he serves. And so it's like, it's effective in that way. Yeah, you don't have to love the character, but that's the value, you know, that the character brings. So
they don't do that turn with Scardino till the very end, though, where like then it, not even that he was a scammer, but he was lying a little bit about why he's in Metropolis and that type of thing. So,
yeah. Just keeping a tally here. So Lois and Clark, they go on that dinner and they go to the fair. 2 dates? 2 dates?
Yeah. Yep. You're forgetting the really romantic stakeout.
Fair.
Sheldon Bender's boat, but otherwise, yes.
Yeah. All right. So 2 dates before we get to the to the marriage proposal.
Oh my God. How many did you go on before you proposed?
Like 4 or 5, you know, just.
Wow. Oh, you waited. Wow. Good for you. You really wanted to make sure, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
But you had mentioned the Tempest Fugitive episode. And obviously we talked about that when you were on the show. We always have to talk about it. What do you want to say?
Okay. You bet. I think it's perfect. I love them playing with the idea before they get to it of like, what's this gonna look like when we actually get there? And it's so like, we don't have to relitigate this. It's weird that everybody forgets it at the end of the episode, blah, 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 blah. But for the audience, for the show to just kind of like try that on for size for a second, I think it's my favorite episode of the show. But beyond all like the crazy plot stuff that makes it fun, the fact that goes so well from a writing and just a character perspective too is what makes it a classic. It's stuff like the H.G. Wells thing, which is as much a part of the romantic, emotional story for them in that episode as anything else. Like that all works so well in that episode that I think it gives the writers confidence of like, okay, if we go here soon, we're gonna be okay. We can manage this storm because we've tried it out and we know it's gonna work.
Yeah, I mean it's so good, and I am happy with how it played out because ultimately I like the place that we get to where she figures it out and reveals it during the marriage proposal at the start of season 3. And so, if she had learned it in Tempest Fugitive and retained it, and that's how she learned the secret, duh. It's like, nah, I don't know that's right for the character.
No, I agree.
But yeah, but you get this preview, this little sampler of what it would be like, and everything that comes out about that, the anger, the hurt over not being trusted, and Clark's explanation, like we've been saying about Clark is who I am, Superman is what I can do. Like
that's where that episode, that's where that line comes from.
So don't be shocked when you hear that on the top 10 list.
Yeah, no kidding. So here's what I love about this, the way this season ends. Like this is my favorite part of their emotional journey in this season, where they tried to give it a shot. First of all, the Scardino thing falls apart, right? And then Lois, more or less, like Superman comes to Lois, I think, at her apartment, and she more or less like lets him go. She does the like, look, what you do is incredible. Of course I was infatuated with you, but like it's not real. You're not mine. You belong to the world and there's someone else. And I'll always love you and always appreciate you as a friend, but that's it. And like the fact that we got there from where we were a season ago, that is the scene that mirrors what we were talking about of like, if you were just any old guy, I'd love you, you know? I love that so much. And again, it's two completely different crews at the helm of the show, but somehow we managed to land that. And that's awesome to me. And then to go from that to like, they're going to give it a shot. He immediately messes it up in the beginning of the next episode, the finale, and pisses her off so much that she is done and like completely betrayed. And then the minute that she finds out that he needs her, that his parents are in jeopardy and like game on, she is at his side and making calls, makes the sacrifice play that might kill her at the end of the episode to save the Kents. Like I get a little choked up thinking about it because it's just like there's that type of relationship that if you're lucky enough to have in life where it's just like, I could kill you right now, but I would do anything for you. You know, like I am so pissed off at you, I can't even speak, but of course I will be there for you. And like, I think that's an awesome place for them to get to at the end of this phase of their relationship.
Perfectly said. I co-sign all of that. And I love to, at the beginning of the finale, I mean, Clark is preparing to tell her his secret, which I like. I think that's an important. I do too. Overall, the proposal, the timing of the proposal is one thing, but I very much like that he is ready to tell her, but she figures it out before. And I echo everything you said about the lengths that she's willing to go to save his parents when he's being extorted. It's fantastic.
And also like that kind of I mean, like if we're going to like really blur our eyes and fan fiction over all this, what she does in that episode for him totally buys like, oh, I'm locking this down. Like, I'm proposing to this woman. But I do really appreciate that in the beginning of that episode, he's about to tell her. And maybe it's Tempest time shenanigans that gets in the way of that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I like here's the funny thing with the proposal. Cause when I did our top 10 Superman moments across media. And one of my entries was that proposal. When it starts to rain in that moment, if the earth opened up at my feet, I wouldn't move until I said this. Great. Like it's so good. And then the who's asking Clarkers. I mean, it's so great. I think, the hang up I have is just how quickly we get to a proposal. It's like and it's funny because I think it's even Perry says at the start of season 3, he's like, why don't you guys try dating first? It's like,
get married. Why don't you start dating first?
Yeah. It's like that.
Love it.
That just would have been, I just wish we could have stayed in that dating mode, even with her knowing, I just wish we could have stayed there. It just felt awfully fast to jump to marriage. But I agree with you. If anything is going to kind of propel that, what she does for him, I go along with that.
And again, we're both just trying to accept this right now. I also think that like we do the quick version of all of this, right? Like her journey from betrayal to acceptance in Tempest Fugitive. And again, like that's where I've kind of come to with that episode where I'm like, I hear the argument of like, why undo this when you're just going to do it in a couple episodes anyway? And I'm like, I think you really gotta test those waters first and see how it goes, see if we're ready for it yet. And they were, and that's blah, blah, blah. And then we get the retcon of the proposal. To then let her stew in that, to do the long version of her speech after she finds out. Like that first scene back at the beginning of season 3, when they're first talking honestly to each other, really ever, is incredible to me. Is one of my favorite moments in the entire show. Terry is fantastic in that scene. And then that's why I'm kind of interested as to why this kind of lagged for you, this early season 3 stuff. Because like this run of episodes, they're not all my favorite episode, don't get me wrong. But like this, like, will they, won't they, when they're both, when everything's out in the open and they're just trying to figure out how this could actually work. And they're both getting cold feet, understandably, because the weight of the world is now on both of their shoulders and they're sharing that for the first time and sharing the insecurities of it. Like that I could have watched for 3 more years.
Like, you know, it's so funny. You know my love of Smallville and all that angst and the back and forth and the secret. Like, you would think I would have
lies,
I'd be eating up this angst between the start of the 3rd season. But yeah, I very much liked that season premiere, and of course the way that episode ends with him flying her up right into the stars and having that moment with her. No, like I think the kickoff to the season is great. I don't know. I just felt like episode after episode of just a lot of talking about whether or not they could be together. Sure. I just felt like we could, like, I don't know. I just felt like there was a little bit more fun that could have been had. I don't know. I'm not like, I hate these episodes, but I think that for whatever reason, and like I say, like, I'm surprised at myself because I feel like I would have, normally I would have expected myself to like be eating that up, but yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of wearing on me.
I say I agree with you with that, where I'm like, yeah, there was more fun to like, let's not just do 6 episodes. Let's do, 48. But I don't know. I again, they're not all my favorite episodes, but like Don't Tug on Superman's Cape is one where I'm like, they are not romantically involved. I don't think there's a kiss even in that episode, but there's kind of no question in my mind that they both want to make it work and have no idea how to. And like that type of like stop and start, Arrested Development, whatever you want to say about it, like that is so interesting to me about these characters who are dealing with this crazy ass thing and trying to do it realistically. Like that's awesome to me. So that's just why that all resonates to me really well. And then to say nothing of the rest of the show and the rest of the phases of their relationship, but that's really the one that like sticks out to me the most because we're both honest and we're both honest about having no idea how to do this.
Gotcha. No, fair. And credit where credit's due. I do love how it culminates in that Ultra Woman episode where she gets to walk a mile in his boots and see everything that he goes through and that whole business about, how big his heart is, how strong his heart is, the things that he can do, but also the things that he knows he can't do. That perspective that she gets, when we did our Lois episode over the summer, we looked at all these instances where Lois has gained powers. And this was easily my favorite because I feel like this one more than any other really kind of showed like what she gleaned from it and it moved their relationship forward. So I love the place that we got to with that.
You guys hit it in that episode too, that, but like that scene in Ultra Woman where she saves him and she's like near tears already. And he's like, what happened? And she's like, I tried to save a thing. It didn't work. I tried to get to this other thing. And why did all those people have to die? Because I was too slow. And it's just like having him then be able to guide her through how he deals with that is, first of all, as a Superman fan, like I just love hearing that because of course there's that part of him, right? And of course we think about that all the time. And like he's Superman, of course he'll get there. And he doesn't always, because the story doesn't always let him. And how does he as a character deal with that? And seeing him talk her through that is just like the most like trauma bond, like the deepest little connection that they can have there. And I always think of that. And again, kind of goes to the like, yeah, after that, of course she's down for this. Like, and whatever weird, craziness their marriage is going to be, there's no denying how good they are together at that point.
Yeah. It's funny as we're talking, I think what kind of,
I think I like this show, man. I think,
right?
I think I'll give it a shot.
No, what I think was grating on me a bit with those early season 3 episodes, I think a lot of it, and I got to let this go, but I think a lot of it kind of hinged on the fact that I didn't feel that they should be talking about being engaged and getting married at that point.
Oh, I totally get that.
And I think so much of it was like, I think if it had been more, and I do know they get to a point where it's like, oh, they put the marriage proposal on the back burner, but it's like still hanging over it. I think that might have been what it was. Cause it was like a lot of the marriage talk. Maybe that's what it was. And that was the other thing with the proposal is when Clark explains that he wanted to know that she was choosing Clark and not Superman. It has bothered me for a couple of reasons. I mean, like we said, he was already preparing to tell her before, before proposing, but also it's like, has she not proven that she is in this for Clark? She literally told Superman, we're just friends. She went to these great lengths for Clark. I mean, I feel like she has, I wish that had been spun differently. Because that just did not ring true. Aw Yeah Comics celebrates everything that is wonderful about comics, toys, artwork, and the joy they bring to people. Visit them in person at one of their 3 locations, Harrison, New York, Muncie, Indiana, or Skokie, Illinois, home to our pal, Sweet Sweet Bernie. If you have children and have been looking for a family-friendly store, look no further. Join Aw Yeah for exciting events, including creator signings, how-tos, and more. Visit awyeahcomics.com and follow them on social media. Their name says exactly how they feel about it. Say it with me now. Aw yeah. Fat Moose Comics, established in 1982, is New Jersey's best and oldest comic book store. Led by current owner Sean Hendricks, Moose has that rare, old-school comic shop feel and camaraderie, yet also remains a welcoming space for new fans. If you're looking for something and they don't have it, they can probably get it for you. They know a guy. Visit Fat Moose in Whippany the next time you are in the Garden State, and be sure to reach out via the Fat Moose Comics Facebook page. We all love the big-budget superhero films, but the world of independent cinema remains a place of creative freedom and entrepreneurial spirit. Whether you're an independent filmmaker yourself or you just love movies, don't miss these New Jersey festivals. Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, Hang On to Your Shorts in Asbury Park, and Round Reel in Bloomfield. And now they're joined by the Shorts and Stout Film Festival in Long Beach, New York. Event details, as well as submission information for filmmakers, can be found at filmfreeway.com.
Nope, I totally am with you. Again, sorry, to be clear, I've got some issues with the show. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Perry said it, you quoted Perry saying it best earlier, of like, I wish we hadn't raced into it. And that's why I wish this had been a little bit longer. And I wish that the proposal hadn't been on the table yet. Let's try to make this work and see where we're going. And it is interesting to me that the proposal is what's happening from, I'll say, faction 2 of the 3 that will kind of lead the show here. At the end of season 2, that's brought out there, because it's like, sorry, you guys think you're going to burn through that much story already that you can't do more here? Like that'll always be kind of baffling to me. But as the other part of my fandom, I'm like, I do like that we do get all kind of phases of their relationship up to kids throughout the show. So, there's silver linings.
On that note, and as we segue into, I think, our next major era here, the wedding obstacles, in rewatching everything, I did get to a point where I really came to miss the quote unquote old Lois. With the spark that she had and that banter and all of that.
Yeah.
Because especially, I would honestly, I think by the time we're in season 3 and she knows a secret, and definitely as we get deeper into the proceedings and I think it's generally a more tender Lois that we see.
Yes.
And there was that part of me that's like, I missed that. And I think there's a way where we could have still preserved a bit more of that banter at work. And then at home, you see the other side. I think we could have had a little bit more of that split. But at the same time, I think kind of the piece that I've made with it is recognizing and appreciating the evolution that the show goes on and that the characters individually and collectively go on. And it's like, from their first meeting to the verge of parenthood at the very end, you see them and they do change. And maybe sometimes you wish things played out longer or whatever the case may be. But there's something to be said for that. So I kind of have learning to just kind of embrace that evolution, even if there are kind of facets of the characters or versions that I would have wanted to cling to.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit too as we get into the marriage and especially into season 4, where again, I like season 4. There's some great stuff in season 4, but there's a bit of a loss of the wonder that is Lois Lane here, and a bit of like equalizing her with intrepid reporter Clark Kent, where I'm like, I always want her to be a couple rungs ahead of him on the, like, you know, a business ladder or whatever, the employment ladder, I guess, of the Daily Planet. And that does tend to fall away for a lot of this. And we don't get all the time to do the fun of, you know, Lois Lane just sticking her nose in and being a little rude and getting her way past the front desk and whatever, you know, like that type of stuff. That does totally fall away. Not totally, but a lot of that falls away. And I miss that later on. Like that is the woman that he fell in love with, you know, like we should be keeping with that as we go through it here. And I'm not even saying like I'm going back and forth on this. I'm not saying that they changed the character. I'm not saying that they like nerf her, you know, reporter powers anyway, but there's just less of a focus on it and more of a focus to what you're saying on that sweet side, that I do totally get what you're saying of like, I wish we could have kept a little more of that alive.
Yeah. But again, arguing against myself, it's like, yeah, but she got this love that she had sought for so long. Right. So it stands to reason that her life changed and she would change. Like we're saying, I think you could have had your cake and eat it too. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, you know, like you're saying, it's not like, oh, they just flipped the switch. I think we can square it. But now for the rest of season 3 and the beginning of season 4, right, we're in this mode of these obstacles. And obviously, I think the biggest one is what I assume all fans consider the most notorious arc of the show, this 5-episode swing where Lois is replaced by Lex with a frog-eating clone. She gets bonked on the head. She thinks she's Wanda Detroit, this character from a novel she's writing. She thinks that Lex is Kent, the love of her life. Mm-hmm. She gets bonked on the head again and loses all of her memory. She gets placed at this facility, like we were saying before. She gets brainwashed. Then she becomes infatuated with the other doctor who's manipulating the situation. Like I said before, I think really those first 3, if it had just been those first 3, I think we would feel very differently about that arc and the season. I think those last 2 were just bridged too far.
All sounds great and normal to me. I don't know what the issue is. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Again, like I think there was pressure to keep the arc going. I think there was reluctance on the side of the production. And I think that those two forces, you know, competing forces, the tension caused between that shows in those 2 episodes. It's also fascinating to see the audience, the not hardcore audience, completely shut off during that amnesia stuff and not really come back to the show. And I'm talking like Nielsen ratings at the time. They just leave and they don't come back in any real way. So yeah, that's kind of the beginning of the end, unfortunately, for the show and the popularity of the show, which is a shame because earlier that season, during Ultra Woman, during the proposal, they are a series high of popularity, of ratings, and to see it squandered like that so quickly is a bummer. But there are many forces at work that make that happen, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's as I was rewatching those, and really, like I said, being all in for those first 3, having Lex back for those 2, and we'll have a lot more to say when we do our Lex episode. But I mean, it gets to the point. Lex learns the secret. I mean, it's amazing. But yeah, when we get to those last 2, like as I was rewatching, I'm like, oh my God, like you guys just shot yourselves in the foot. Like, what is? I think the other thing too. And by the way, we're not done with obstacles because we still have the new Krypton arc, but I feel very differently about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think one of the things that I was bumping up against with these wedding obstacles, and this might not make sense, but whatever. This is kind of what was in my head. You know, for me personally, like getting married, of course, it was a big deal. But by the time my wife and I got married, I mean, we had been together for a few years. We were living together.
Yep.
We were committed to each other. It's like the wedding was wonderful, but it didn't change the way I felt. It's like I would have done anything for her the day before, just as I would do anything in all of the days since.
Interesting. I didn't care for my wife before the wedding, but then I did come around. So It's just two different points. No, I see what you're saying, but I do understand too from a TV's perspective. Like, we can't squander the move-in episode before the thing, like, or like, especially at the time. Like, there's some stuff that they couldn't kind of get and in order to keep the marriage as like this big, attainable, ultimate goal that they're after. Obviously, the fun is then moving the goalposts. And again, your mileage may vary on the different ways that they did that.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't want to paint this as like Anthony doesn't think it's a big deal to get married. It's not that, but it's just, they put they put so much weight right on them getting to the altar. And again, like you're saying, I get it from the show's perspective. The wedding is this big event, this big spectacle, and for the characters, they can't have sex until they get married. So it's like, I get it. I get for them and for the show why it's a big deal. But I think like as I'm watching it, I'm like, all right, they pin so much on this, but I get it. Yeah.
The thing that I do like about this, I completely agree with what you're saying, by the way. I'm just being rude. What I do like about this is like from, I think Just Say Noah, but like from that early season 3 thing, when they decide like in some way, shape or form, we're going to make this work through all this marriage, goalposts shifting or whatever, like they are solid. They are a team. Even when they let him go to New Krypton, which we'll get to in a second, they are doing that as a team. And like, that's kind of what I feel is the version of what you're talking about, is the version of like, yeah, we're not married yet, but I will do anything for you today, just like I will do anything for you tomorrow after we are married.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on that note, we got yet one more obstacle for them at the end of season 3, the beginning of season 4, this New Krypton arc. Turns out there's this whole colony of Kryptonians out there.
Oh, good news.
Clark Kal-El is of noble blood, and he's already betrothed to Lady Zara, and he's needed to return to New Krypton to unite the people and stop Lord Nor, their take on Zod, from usurping power. And Clark makes the impossible choice to leave Lois and leave Earth to accept this responsibility.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself because we talked about this whole arc at length, but this is some great stuff. And for where, again, the maturity of their relationship, where they start in season 2 and where they get to here, where they both kind of, again, she's as important to the Superman thing as he is. And she understands like, no, this is something you need to do, even though it's going to truly ruin our lives. And that's this like beautiful, noble aspect of both of these characters that I will always respect and admire as a fan, as a little kid that learned part of my morality from watching these stories,
All in all, I think the first season of the show represents the best iteration of Lois and Clark. But when we look at, or the best version of like what it was originally intended to be.
The original mission statement.
Yes. But when we look at the totality of the series, I feel like this 4-part swing really represents the best of the show, because it's the connection between the two of them, the longing, being ripped apart by these forces. But what I like about it, and maybe what sets this apart here, is like with the frog eating clone arc, like Lex inserts himself, replaces Lois, takes Lois away. Here, right. Clark ultimately does have to make the choice. They don't just like grab him and put him on the ship. So yes, there are external forces, but it's ultimately this personal choice that they make together, which I feel like elevates it. And then look, over the course of the show, as you know better than anybody, they sorted a lot out in terms of the action and the special effects. And I just feel like everything kind of came together. Like all of the best parts of the show came together for this New Krypton arc, especially that season 3 finale. Like I was crying watching it.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. And the goodbye is heartbreaking, but even before that, and I probably talked about this last time, I'm sorry, but like there's the talk with the Kents about like, is this your fight? We marched for civil rights because it was our fight. We couldn't even explain why. And then there's this quiet moment back at Clark's apartment. She's like out of the balcony. He's inside, and there's no dialogue in the scene. They just like both happen to look at each other at the same time. And you just like, they both play it beautifully of just this quiet, like, acceptance. And that's beautiful. I think this whole thing is the producers' Hail Mary pass at getting that magic back. And for you and me, it totally worked. And you do, of course, see a ratings bump and whatever during this. And then to go right from that into like, we're doing the marriage. Don't worry, it's a real one. And then we're going off. Like it doesn't sustain. The ratings don't sustain, unfortunately, after that. But like, I think it is a hell of a thing and a mission statement for this arc of like, let's get everybody back. Let's pull out all the stops. Let's go as big as our budget can let us go.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as obstacles go, that new Krypton arc I think was easily the most compelling.
Awesome. And it's fairy tale, right? Like it is high fantasy in that like kind of superhero garb, but just the idea of like, you know, another kingdom needs him and he's promised there and that type of thing. Like that's great.
Yeah, and then all this business about whether Kal-El has consummated the relationship with Lady Zara. Like there's great stuff, and I know we talked about this last time. But I love when they're in the planet talking. Like Lois and Clark are talking with Zara and Ching, and Clark is like, "How do we know you're not agents of Lord Noor?" And Lois is like, "Yes, good, Clark,
good Clark, yeah."
Oh, so good. So good. So yeah, the longing, the chemistry, the humor,
turns out
the
your
spectacle.
spaceship is our marriage certificate. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah. A lot of fun. And then we ultimately get to the one true wedding, and they're married by this figure, Mike. I mean, what is your ultimate read on this character? Guardian Angel.
A guardian angel. Yeah. I don't appreciate the Mike choice, but it's what we've got. I think it's very silly. If I want to do the charitable read on it, you know, here's something that maybe we should have saved to the end, and I'm sorry to bring it up now, but this couple's love is going to bring about a utopian future for the world. So they are as important a love story as anything ever will be. So the fact that the divine whatever has to get involved here to make that happen, I kind of can squint and get through, but it's tough. It's one of the hardest pills to swallow in the whole show for me, which is a bummer because like you hear, I hope anyone that's listened to my show that listens to this like knows like I'm here for this relationship. I want it to work really well, and the fact that like the wedding is one of my least rewatched episodes of the show is a bummer.
So it's like, trying to be generous. Like I think one of the tough spots that they put themselves in is that it turned out to be a clone, but it's like, we got a wedding at a church with Perry officiating. Like you got
right,
that.
We kind
so
of
it's
burned
like
that bridge.
Okay. So it's like, we have to do something different. I mean, I think this whole idea with Mike, I mean, one of the things that's interesting is like, you know, all of the characters know him. Like when they all convene at this wedding that they're all mysteriously drawn to, all of us, they all recognize him. It's like, oh, like he's been there for us along the way.
Throughout the episode, it's like, oh, the hot dog vendor. Yeah,
yep.
Mike, I know you. Oh, the exterminator or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this would have helped or hurt, but if there had been more forethought with this and they had like seeded this guy into other episodes along the way, I don't know that would have accomplished much. What would have been better? Like, I don't know, H.G. Wells showing up and marrying them. Like I
would have taken that. If we're doing fantasy craziness, I would have 100% taken that. Obviously we get H.G. Wells back in the very next episode, so like thank God he's around. But I would have just much preferred the quiet. Like I get trying to do the quiet version of it. My wife and I got married in a park, more or less. Like I like that idea for them, but I would have much more preferred it at the end of that episode where like Clark gets a look in his eye and goes like, you know what we could do? And then flies up there with like, you know, Justice of the Peace and the Kents and just does it, you know, like that, like the more, I don't know, the more practical, the more realistic version of Superman flying up and getting married on a hill. But like that would have made me a lot happier. If that episode stayed the same and kind of ended like that, I would rewatch it all the time.
I hear you. So this is
some version of that. I'm not saying my first draft is brilliant, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. No. So this is jumping to the very end, but I want to kind of use Mike as our springboard here because the show ends, right? In the final episodes, right? Lois and Clark are exploring whether or not they're biologically compatible, whether or not they could have children together. And they get the disappointing news, according to Dr. Klein's test, that no, they cannot. But at the end of the episode, a baby, appears in their apartment in a Superman blanket with a note that says, Lois and Clark, this child is yours. Now,
Yep.
we have learned since then that the original intention was that this child was Kryptonian royalty who was stashed there to save him from assassins, and he was going to grow at an accelerated rate in the next season. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which, the accelerated aging, that calls to mind a rough patch of Angel, that Angel show. And I'm like, I don't know that maybe that would
Connor.
Yeah, Connor. I don't know that would have been the way to go. But I do kind of like the idea of circling back to the fact that like New Krypton exists and there are other Kryptonians. Yeah. But I bring this up, A, it's relevant to our conversation, but B, as a kid, like I didn't know at the time that, they thought they were getting a fifth season. This was a cliffhanger. There was a plan. Like I watched what I thought was the intended series finale, and there's a baby there. And honestly, like my headcanon was always that it was Mike. Like Mike was this guardian angel, and he gave them a baby.
Read. Yeah, I think that's a totally fair read. Obviously, we know that wasn't the case. But that's cute. And honestly, like that, I almost don't want to ruin that for you, because that's, if you're on board for Mike so much that you're going to fan canon that in, then great, go for it.
And I feel like if when they knew that then the show wasn't coming back, if they had just, because Mike has his own musical cue, right, associated with him, unless I'm missing. If they had just dropped that in at the very end, you don't even have to reshoot anything. You just drop in that little musical. We'd be done. We'd have a.
This is an interesting take from you. Okay, I like this. I've got no real qualms with what was going to happen, and I can headcanon in my head that season that they were going through. What Sorry, I don't want to go against your Mike thing. I think it's cute. I think it's a totally fair read, just textually from what we've got there. So why not? If we can talk a little bit about what the plan was for that.
Yeah.
First of all, just stepping back to the relationship, the many phases that they've gone through, the many trials. I love that it's not meant to be their final trial, but the final trial on this show is something that they fail, is through no fault of their own. They biologically can't get past this, and it's devastating to them. And there's still kind of like adoption on the table, but like the last really emotional, truthful scene we have between them is Lois crying because he tells her that they can't have a baby. And like, I've got no qualms with that. To then give them the reward, and then we're still in a crazy show. The idea that the next season was going to be, look, we don't want to cousin Oliver here. We don't want to weigh them down with a kid for the rest of time necessarily. So let's let it all play out over a season. Let's let them go from toddler to 18, whatever acceptable age he stops aging at, and he has to go back to do Krypton at the end of season 5. Like, I think that's a great way to do it for a high fantasy show like that, to play the parenthood metaphor that quickly, and like, that there would be lines at the end of like, wow, it all went so fast, or something like, yeah. And I think it also leaves the door open for like, had they gotten to season 6, guess what, Dr. Klein figured out something, or Mike brought him a baby, or whatever version of that, where like ultimately they could have ended with a permanent kid if that's where they wanted to go with it. But I don't know. I like the bravery of not letting them achieve that right away, the way that they wanted to, and then to force them into it in a way that they didn't sign up for. I think that's really smart.
No, I agree. And again, I think I'm just scarred by Angel, but maybe it would have played out better and differently here. But no,
I'm scarred by that fast aging baby episode of Smallville and the Birds of Prey show. So, I get you.
Fair. But no, this comes up a lot about whether or not, we think Lois and Clark should be able to conceive a child. And I'm kind of the mind, if we're dealing with the version of the story where they can, where it happens, like in the current comics, like Superman and Lois, I'm okay with it. I'm not opposed per se, but I mean, I don't know if this were a real scenario. I was like, I don't think they would be able to. I'm no scientist,
No,
but
and I
like,
like that the show did that too. Yeah.
yeah. And the fact that the whole, found family and adopted child. And Clark even says in this, when they're talking about adoption, he's like, it worked out pretty great for me. It's like the idea of him returning that favor and taking in a child. I mean, there's something very compelling about that. So
that's a really nice way to put that too, Anthony. Maybe that's from something, but I've never heard that before. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Like my headcanon is kind of this, where like they can't have a kid the normal way. So let them adopt or let them, take in like this, a refugee that they've got to raise in their own way. Like we haven't seen that version of this story really play out yet. And it doesn't have to be that season 5 pitch necessarily, but I would be really interested to see what that looks like for them.
Yeah. And I mean, look, clearly we like the new Krypton arc. So something that would tie back to that and reopen that world. I mean, I don't know.
It's Zara and Ching's baby, and we're hiding it from Lord Nor's brother or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, very interesting. And then we've already talked about a bit of it, but so now we're in the final iteration of their relationship and the show, married life. And like I said, I mean, I went into this is what I think happened to me. I think I had a fairly solid memory of the series finale with Fathead. And I was just like, oh God, like the whole season's going to be like that. But it's like, no, like there are some great episodes. And if I only got so much mileage out of, are we going to get married? And then are we going to make it to the altar? Here now, we're past that. Mm-hmm. And we're introducing new challenges to this married couple that felt very believable. It didn't feel like, oh, they're going to split up, but it felt like things that they had to work through. And I really like how this played. I mean, just kind of running through a few, this whole idea, the brutal youth episode about the rate at which he ages.
Comes up a lot in the comics.
Yeah. And it's never becomes too much of a problem because the characters are sort of always stuck at a certain, point, but, kind of exploring what that would actually be like and how he'll in theory outlive her and everyone around them. I think was an interesting thing to explore. Lois being made the new editor when Perry gets promoted. I mean, I thought that was great. Now, to your point, when Perry's explaining his decision, he's like, everything was equal between the two of you. It's just that Lois was here more. I think it could have been, that's an instance where he could have pointed to something that's solely Lois's. That's not just time. That's
Clark, you're an incredible reporter, but I don't think you can fight my decision or something, something like that.
Yeah. But what I liked about this, and, going back to what we were saying at the beginning about Lois is in the title and, really moving the character forward and putting her at the forefront. It's like, go back to the George Reeves show. There are a bunch of times where Clark, of course, is the one who fills in for Perry. In the comics, when Perry has lung cancer and he has to step down, of course, it's Clark. So I like that it's Lois, and I love the tension that that's a great for this married couple early in their relationship and their first real fight. And it's like, they part ways in the morning, still not on good terms. I mean, it's, that felt true to life.
Look, yep. Mm-hmm.
And then something like the sex, lies, and videotape episode that we mentioned before, where we have this journalist, she actually does get a photo of Superman. And it's like a perfect kind of story to tell in this, in this realm.
I couldn't agree more. And again, plays into the romance of the show, plays into the sexiness and all that. And then plays into this incredibly lovely thought that Lois has and the show's take on Superman as just this world figure, as this true mentor, moral center of the world, and what happens when that is tainted. And it's something we've unfortunately had to deal with a lot in our culture, but to do it at this type of level where it's what if Santa Claus was an adulterer is a really interesting thing. And again, I said it earlier, but I love that Lois here is the one that is do not throw Superman under the bus for this. He is important here as much as you and I. So let's figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that was so fascinating about that episode is this bit of a moral debate, because it turns out that even though the photographer was there and took the photo, it got destroyed. So she ended up
real lucky whoops-a-daisy saved the day here. Yeah.
Right. But as far as Lois and Clark know, it's no, they were there. They were, it's a legit photo.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Clark's perspective is well, it's not a lie. This is a real photo. So that aspect and kind of the lengths that he was willing to go to or not go to, it was very interesting. One of the last big things, but I love this so much, is the two-parter where Lois is framed for murder.
Okay.
And Clark breaks her out after
My
she
mileage may vary on this, to be honest with you.
So here's the thing. I love the Superman and Lois show. But in season 3, we had the whole arc where Lois had cancer. And it was a very moving, very emotional story. And I understand why they didn't want to use Kryptonian technology to cure her. They wanted this to be true to life, and they wanted to play it out. And I get that. And if they had just not addressed the Kryptonian technology, I would have been fine. Or if they had said, as advanced as it is, like, it's not a Kryptonian disease, there's nothing we can do, that would have been fine. But the way they played the explanation...
I don't remember this. Okay.
I will never forget this. The way they played this was that if Clark used Kryptonian tech to save Lois, then he would have to share it with the world. And I say 2 things. Number 1, if your technology can cure cancer, why wouldn't you share it with the world?
Do both, Superman. Yeah.
But also, if for whatever reason he's unable or unwilling to do that, you make an exception and you save your wife. I don't like, even if you're Superman, especially if you're Superman, like I feel, and maybe this is me transposing my own morals onto Superman, but it's like, I just feel like he would do whatever it takes. And this 2-parter here with, that's what stood out to me, where it's like, they tried to let the system play out and try to beat it legitimately. But when that failed, he broke her out. And I felt like that is 1000% what quote unquote my Superman would do. So I like that.
I do like, I like, you're helping, honestly. You're helping me buy that a little bit. I hadn't remembered the Superman and Lois thing, but that's funny. I think there was another way to play it though. Like, I think there would be something cool. Again, like we were talking about, we kind of missed the spunky reporter Lois Lane. Like, let her break this down from the inside. Let her start to make this happen from inside of jail. Like, that's a little bit more interesting to me than like them on the run and her in bad wigs and big sunglasses on the road, you know? I hear what you're saying, and I do like that it's his instinct, but I wish they had either pushed it further or held back on that particular move. And by push it further, I guess I mean, like, if things had been really bad for Lois, if like suddenly she was on like, I don't know, I guess she is on like death row or something horrible, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, never mind. All right. They pushed it.
Yeah. They really upped the stakes. It's like they want to execute her. So
I guess maybe it's just my own fan perception, but like, I would be more interested in seeing what's Lois Lane do in jail to get herself out of jail. Like, how does she wrap this place around her finger in order to make this happen?
Sure. No, I hear you. I guess this is really the last.
Both are valid.
Yeah. The last thing is kind of just a big picture thing, but it was interesting and I guess refreshing in terms of sources of tension between them. You know, certainly when he's constantly running off, lying, making excuses, there's that. But once she knows the secret, we do get to a point in season 4 where she feels some sort of way about all of the charitable events and causes that he agrees to.
Yes.
Which I think was fair and I think brought up interesting conversation between them. But it's never, unless I'm really blanking, like it's never played that she's ever put off by him needing to speed off to help people.
No, one of my favorite things about this show. Yeah.
Yeah. Because in the comics, when they break off their engagement, there are multiple factors, including Lori Lamaris re-entering the picture. But a lot of it is that she feels like she's taking a back seat. Like his duties are always the priority and not her. And I'm glad that the show didn't lean into that.
Yeah, me too. And that's, again, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself on your own show, but I know I'm repeating myself in general. But like them in end of season 3, season 4, them as like this ultimate first responder couple where like, no matter what's going on between us, if you have to go, I get it. We'll deal with it later. Like that is a beautiful thing here, that there's never any shittiness of like, oh, now Clark, we just put dinner on the table. You know, like that would make her so unappealing, and they never do that to her. And it's just the same way, like, oh, I ignored that call so that I could stay home. It's like, you what? You know, like go. That's never an option here. And that just smartly the writers realize that just adds to the tension. Like, yes, that is a lovely kind of fantasy of what these two are and how stable their relationship is, but it also just gives us an opportunity to make them both great and keep whatever story is going on between them going a little bit longer because he's got to go save a bus or whatever.
Yeah. Look, obviously we didn't go through every nook and cranny of the romance, but we hit on a lot.
I think we did okay though.
Yeah. I mean, I think we
Mike would be proud of us.
Yeah. anything we didn't hit that you want to make sure we talk about?
No, I'm sure that as soon as we hang up, I'm going to think of like 5 other favorite moments in the show that I'm like, I can't believe I didn't bring that up in the relationship episode. But like I said, there's 88 episodes of this show. All of them have at least one scene that makes me a stronger Superman fan. You know, that makes me a big fan of the show because of how they play the relationship. So yeah, apologies to whatever we didn't mention, but no, I think we covered it pretty well, man.
Yeah, I like to think we did their relationship justice. And look, if people want all of the detail, they should listen to your podcast. The last thing,
season 3 onward, that's when it really picks up.
No,
sorry, just to plug, but like I did get to talk to Eugenie Ross Lemming and Brad Buckner, who were the showrunners for season 3 and 4 this year, and that was such a thrill. A, they were just like cool people, which I didn't see coming, to be honest. And B, like they had some really cool insights, and were whatever you think of season 3 and 4. I know people's mileage vary for the most part. Like I really love their era, but like they were coming at it with the absolute best of intentions and real respect for the characters. And I think even when it's not your particular favorite episode or whatever, I think that really shines through. So if I could plug like that's worth listening to if you've made it through those.
Yeah, right. No, I encourage everyone to check out that and your podcast generally, and we'll include the link in the show notes. But yeah, man, I mean, overall, and I've said this in other episodes, but one of the places that I've gotten to in my Superman fandom is it's like, I don't need, for the most part, I think I don't need any one project to be everything for me. Like I've gotten to a place where I can enjoy an aspect. And so I look at this and look.
And then there's a show like this that is everything,
yes.
Right? That just delivers on every single level.
You know, it's like, would I watch this for the action? No, though they got better as they went along. But the heart and the romance, like that's the concept. That's the thing about this that, makes it resonate and I think makes it still hold up. And so, that's why we started with this. We had to. Now, before we sign off for this first episode, I did want to just take a moment to address the Dean Cain of it all. And we actually have interestingly, I put the call out to our patrons if they had comments or questions, and like virtually all of them hit on this in some way, shape, or form. So
great. Cool.
First of all, the fact that we're doing these episodes is not in any way, shape, or form an endorsement of Dean Cain.
Nor does doing an entire podcast about the show, by the way.
Exactly. So for anyone who needs to hear it, the views that he has been expressing over these past years do not in any way, shape, or form align with my own. Now, as far as why we're still doing these episodes, we've bumped up against this before and talking about certain other creators. And I've always said that, whether and to what extent we separate the art from the artist is a personal internal calculus that each person can and should do on their own. I think for me, it's not a blanket approach, but generally kind of my instinct is not to ignore something. And especially in the instance of something like this, like we've been saying, it was foundational to my fandom, my early fandom, and a pivotal chapter in the larger mythology, and is not the product solely of one man, right? There were so many people. And even in the title of the show, right? We also have Lois and Terry Hatcher. So, from my perspective, it didn't feel right to just like ignore this. So we're doing these episodes and I'm excited to have fun. And hopefully that elephant in the room doesn't take away from anyone's enjoyment of the show or these discussions. And that's where I am on this.
I gotta be, we talked a little bit about this earlier on and off mic, I should say. This has been a really weird year for me as a Superman fan. I'm incredibly lucky. I work for Warner Brothers right now. I don't know if you heard, there was a Superman movie this summer. That was an incredible time. Right after that, an actor who I'd already disavowed, basically, comes out with the most heinous, abysmal, hateful shit you can in our modern times, and just really, really killed the high I've had for this show for many years now, really since starting the podcast, or at least really like coming back to the podcast in like COVID and whatnot. But like that was a gut punch to the fandom of this, because I'm like, it's really hard to say anything about the show sometimes when all people know is that Dean Cain has just done this hateful, awful, heinous thing. And that's like kind of the shorthand of the show right now, and that is very much what it is, because of him. That being said, this conversation was really nice to do today. And part of that too is to kind of reconnect with the show and exactly what you're saying. I was emailing with Jim Pohl the other day, who is the production designer for the vast majority of the show, takes over mid-season 1 and stays with it till the end. An incredibly talented man. I love this guy so much. He just like brought so much life to the show and did so much work on it. That is one dude of like 200, 300 on any given day that were employed by the show that made it happen. Is Dean Cain a figurehead of it? Yeah, unfortunately, he plays 2 out of the 3 characters in the title, but he is not this show for me. He was a scripted actor doing a bit and bringing to life this vision that a bunch of other people talked about. Like we talked about, there's all these different factions of the show. So it's really a bummer. I have no problem saying Dean Cain, as many posts and episodes of my podcasts have said before, but it won't be able to kill my enjoyment of the show ultimately. Even though it was a surprising turn of events this summer. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. So I don't plan on talking about him and this specifically in these other episodes, but I did want to address it because it is something that you can't escape when talking about this. So I wanted to address it. And it was also interesting to me that unprompted, that's what all of our patron comments hit on in some way, shape, or form.
I think just like at any point, if you're putting something out with a microphone in your face, like it's not right to not address when things like this come up, and to be completely silent on it would have been irresponsible of you. So I think it's good to call it up, but I also don't think that means that this has to be a joyless endeavor and we have to do the Dean Cain disclaimer at every episode. I think from now on, have a great time rewatching the show, because dude, like this really kind of set the spark again for me. Good. And I thank you for that, because this show means the world to me and has for, since I was 11 years old. So to not want to watch it as much this past couple months has been really a bummer to me when it's like a comfort show like that. So I hope we're ending on a good note with that. And I cannot wait personally to hear what the rest of this little miniseries is.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And yeah, no, I want people to know where I stand. I don't want that that shouldn't be a question mark. So, yeah. I guess for anyone who's curious, it's like, I thankfully was able to watch these episodes without kind of thinking about the current real world situation all the time. Now, there were a couple of episodes where you could not think about it. So for whatever it's worth to people, it's like, yeah, I was able to separate that out and enjoy these episodes for what they are. And I'm glad that we could have a fun conversation. And I thank you so much for joining me, man. Always a pleasure.
Oh, dude, this is just the best. And again, like I was a fan before we really started talking. So it's still fun that you invite me on here to talk about my weird little area of Superman expertise when you've got so much more knowledge. Your name is invoked quite a lot on Zach Moore's Patreon these days when we've been reading Superman comics and going like, oh, guess what? Anthony had this writer on the podcast too. So let's listen to that before we do it and that type of thing. So really, thank you for all the legwork, if nothing else.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. But yeah, man, I would not think of doing this event without you. So thank you, audience. Make sure you keep tuning in for all of the Lois and Clark mixtapes still to come. Until then, as always, it's about what you do. It's about action. This podcast is an affiliate of BCW Supplies. The next time you need to restock on comic book bags, boards, boxes, and more, be sure to use promo code FSP to save 10% on your order. That's FSP for Flat Squirrel Productions. It helps support the show too. Thank you. By popular demand, Digging for Kryptonite merch is now available at our TeePublic store. Visit the link in the show notes to get your DFK shirts, hats, mugs, and more. Support the show and receive exclusive content, including the spin-off podcast Beyond Metropolis, by becoming a member at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. My sincere thanks to all patrons. Please subscribe, rate, and review today via your platform of choice, and continue the conversation by joining us on social media. Flat Squirrel Podcast is also home to another exciting episode in the Adventures of Superman, now covering the color era of the classic George Reeves series. Subscribe today. Digging for Kryptonite is a Flat Squirrel production. Key art by Isaiah Simmons and theme music by Dan Pritchard.